Just give me a second. Welcome to Seattle PI Editorial Board.
Larry Phillips with the King County Council, joined by Kathy Lambert, my colleague on the budget leadership team, and we've just finished up the budget for 2009 in a grueling 7-week process, which we got through. Really daunting challenges facing us as we look forward, but I think we did as good a job as we could under the circumstances. We set out in August knowing that we were going to have a very problematic budget to deal with going into 2009. In March, when we got started on this, it was a $45 to $70 million problem. We hit $70 million kind of midsummer, so we knew it was going to be deeper as we went along. It ended up being a $93.6 million gap in our general fund. And we said we need to prioritize what we're doing, and so we set out by motion a direction to the county executive that we were going to prioritize protection of public safety and preservation of public health, and then the quality of life that we have here in King County would be our third top priority, which would include human services, parks, recreations, the kind of things that people here in King County associate with a great place to live. So we sent that to the executive, and then we received his budget on October 13th. It was further challenged by, he started into some very late labor negotiations, starting October 3rd with trying to close the budget gap by gaining some significant concessions from labor, which we also passed a motion to support both the executive and our labor unions to work long and hard over the course of the ensuing weeks to come to some sort of negotiated agreement, which added a third dimension to our ability, because not only did we have a giant hole to fill in our budget, or to deal with in our budget, but we also had the shifting sands of not certain what the uncertainty was relative to the negotiations with our labor unions. But we reached our goals. We did rearrange significantly the executive's spending priorities, but we did live within his overall spending caps, particularly within the general fund. We came in substantially lower than him by, I think, almost $20 million. We also, although it was tempting in the beginning to tap into some of the reserves, we were able to leave our fundamental reserves alone to protect our bond rating so that our triple bond rating remains intact. We then set about to scour line by line the executive's budget, and knowing what we know about budgets, and we're all kind of seasoned and been through this, looking for any savings that we could find, which we did. Approximately $10 million was rearranged in terms of saving very important programs. We were joined at our initial news conference on October 13th by the King County Sheriffs, who are the presiding judges for the Superior and District Court, Bruce Hillier and Barbara Lindy, as well as our county assessor, Scott Noble, and our King County prosecutor Dan Satterberg. They were not happy or satisfied with the executive's budget in terms of its spending priorities and what was not available to them for 2009. So we worked very closely with them to identify key restorations, which we were able to do, particularly for drug court and mental health court and family court services for the Superior and District Courts. And we were also able to restore significant funding for the assessor so that he would continue to be able to value new construction, which helps out our bottom line essentially significantly each year. And then, of course, probably the foremost restorations we did were in public safety for the sheriff. She identified 10 areas of critical importance to her. She's not happy with the cuts that she is going to take in 2000, but she's much more supportive and was at our news conference yesterday, as were the others, in support of this budget. She's very pleased with the restorations we did make, including 19 critically important officers on her department we restored to the budget, most obvious of which are the storefronts that we have throughout King County, and those immediate community police resources will be available to places like White Center, which really do depend upon that storefront presence. So all in all, it was a very tough, daunting, challenging budget, but I think we did the best we could under the circumstances. So.
I would agree with that. We worked very hard in going line by line. We had our priorities, and we worked with all the council members to see what inside those priorities were important to them. And we worked with our separately electeds. That was very important because they gave us their hierarchies of what was important to them. And it's really interesting that we're in a situation now where many of the things that we consider to be the mainstays of good public service, like having drug court, mental health court, where we are seeing people reduce their recidivism and their cycling through the jails, which fundamentally is not good for us fiscally because it's more expensive as well as socially. So many of those things were cut in the original version that came from the executive, and we have worked very hard for the last 8 years trying to put together the adult and juvenile operational master plans. So we really wanted to have those carry forward, and so we did that. And I think we've come out with some very good things. One of the things that we looked at as we looked in the lifeboat was to be able to say, let's put some things in there to make it very clear to Olympia which kinds of things are at risk. And so we looked at a very extensive list of unfunded mandates, things that the state legislature has said we need to fund. And they're all great things. There's nothing in there that would say, oh, we don't want to do that. But there are things that they've asked us to do, we are doing, but they neglected to send us any money to do those things. And so we looked at what are those things. Could you talk about the fact that maybe we won't be able to do this service anymore because we just can't afford it? And one of the things that's very expensive to us is the dependency, having the attorneys paid for by the public defense for dependency cases. And I think we put $2 million into the lifeboat. We are one of the counties in the state that is not funded through the state to do that. 25 of the 39 counties are funded to do that. And if the legislature were to have more money in that account, we also could be funded. So that's one of the things that when we go to Olympia that I want to talk about is that we really do need to start having the state help us with some of these things that are unfunded mandates.
Thank you.